The Fiscal Committee meeting will begin in 1 minute.
Call to order this meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council Fiscal Committee. It's July 5th, 2017, and I appreciate the enormous crowd here this afternoon. It's great to have you all here with us, and those of you watching on TV and the internet, we appreciate it. I am looking for an approval of the minutes from April 4th.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. That passes. We're going to do just one really important item this afternoon with Mr. Bixler, our budget analyst. We're going to, and Kim and Tom are also going to help with this in terms of looking at the City Council budget for 2018. So, Mr. Bixler, I'll have you start for us, please.
Thank you. City Council budget analyst. The third quarter of the year is when the CIP and operations budgets are presented for the council's consideration. The fiscal committee usually cancels meetings due to the focus put on the budgets at this time. The thought this year is to present the fiscal committee the 3 programs under the city council department: the internal audit, city clerk office, and then the city council. Kim Schroeder will present the internal audit program, Tom Greco will present the city clerk program, and I will present the city council program with a few comments of the city council department in total at the end. Kim?
Hello, Kim Schroeder, internal audit manager. And just a quick snapshot here of the 2017 internal audit budget. Flip through to 2018, which will look very similar. You will note wages and benefits are down about $26,000. That would be due to staff turnover, Rich's retirement, and then some downtime while we were onboarding new staff this year. So got a little bit of cost savings there. Professional services category pretty much entails our external audit, which we are now in the process of working on getting a new 3-year engagement for that. And we budget for the financial statement audit in there, as well as enough room for them to audit up to 6 federal grant programs. Typically, they do 3 to 4. So we budget for 6 to be on the safe side there. Slight increase there, just budgeting for an approximate 3% fee increase, which is typical in the industry. And then also a slight increase in travel and training. I think it's very beneficial that we continue down the path of promoting continued education for our staff. So we're going to try to send all 3 of us to the annual conference this year, get new staff trained on those things. So slight increase there, nothing major. And then rentals and utilities are pretty much remaining flat. So. Any questions I can answer regarding any of those items?
Questions from the committee. I think we will do these individually. So if you have questions for Kim, Manager Schroeder.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Kim, what is, explain rentals a little bit more. The
Rentals?
category rentals, is it equipment or is it?
Copy machine, copiers, fax machine, our laptops, things like that.
Lease agreements.
Lease
okay.
agreements.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything from you, Councilor Starr? A couple questions from me. Kim, would you remind us where is that annual conference going to be this year?
It moves around this coming year in 2018. It's in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
2017, we went to Atlanta.
Okay, so it involves flights.
Yes.
And that kind of thing.
The registration for that runs right around $500 per attendee for 2 days worth of training, and then you have your travel costs, flight, hotel,
right.
per diems.
Well, and as you said, you have a fairly new staff.
Right.
So training is valuable. I'm not questioning it, just wanted to
No, and
highlight.
then also lumped into the training are the local things that we go to here. The group that I am treasurer for, the Institute of Internal Auditors, puts on a fall seminar and a spring seminar local in Sioux Falls, and then monthly lunch meetings. So we
Good.
attend those at a very, very cheap rate for continuing education. So
Counselor,
Yes.
can I ask you, how many CE credits do you need each year to keep your designations up?
I need 40. They don't technically need them, but it's,
But they will when they get their designations.
Yep.
Yeah. And so this is important to, yep.
Yeah, exactly. One other question then from me, in terms of those external audit services, when you talked about the federal grant programs, can you remind us which grants those are that you're having audited? You don't, or you?
I don't know for sure which 3 they did this year. They go through a process each year to select those based on risk and dollar amount. They have to cover a certain percentage of our total federal awards. So there's a process in determining those each year, and they change from year to year.
Right. And who does those for us?
Ide Bailey.
Ide Bailey does
Currently,
those.
yep.
Okay, good. Any other questions from the committee?
Just a
Yes,
comment.
Councilor Rolfing.
I
Yeah.
remember one of those in-depth federal grant audits was on housing. One of the housing, Les Kinstead's group downstairs, I think
Right.
was what it was.
Okay,
So,
good
And
memory.
typically they get selected. One of their programs, they have, I think, 4 or 5 that come in there, so.
Right, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Next.
Okay, Tom Greco, City Clerk. I'll talk briefly about the City Clerk budget. So 2017, you'll see a difference between 2017 and 18, primarily due to the election next year, probably 2 elections if we have a runoff. So this is just a recap of 2017. We're generally on track, obviously, to complete the year, but I obviously want to focus on 2018 and talk about some of the key items here. So with wages and benefits at the start, there's about an $11,000 increase from 2017. This is due in part to pulling on a seasonal employee to help with elections. If you recall, Connie did that last time and probably will again, along with some overtime for staff during the election. And then, of course, the big item is the professional services, and that actually includes a couple of different items within our budget. The foremost among them, at least for 2018, is going to be the election, and I'll talk a little more about that. But that also includes things like filing fees for when we file items at either the counties, professional services, as in terms of publishing as well. So that includes not just publishing legal notices in the newspaper, but also our American Legal Code Supplement, which we have updated online, and we also have about 35 to 40 hard copies throughout the city. So we roll those funds into there as well. But going to the election, just to give you an idea of what we're spending the money on, obviously it's a lot of ballots that we pay for each year. That takes up a sizable chunk, but also our election workers. It takes over 200 people to work an election, really closer to about 240, 250. So that takes a significant share of our budget for the election. And of course, if we have a runoff, we know that we take that number that's up there that we have, which is basically about $164,000 for the election minus those wages that I pointed out before. Divide that by 2. The runoff election is generally just a little cheaper, but they're both basically equivalent because we'll plan on having a runoff for an at-large or a mayoral candidate. If we have a district runoff only, then it would definitely be cheaper. But we've looked at numbers over the past several years, looked at some trends, and I think we have a good estimate for the election going into 2018, and we'll be able to cover ourselves, not just in terms of actually carrying out the election legally, official ballots, so on and so forth, but also informing the public through the use of postcards, because if you recall, we're going to move some districts around, change the boundaries, and we're going to want to send postcards out to those folks to make sure that they're aware of that. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Councilor Starr? Question from me, Mr. Greco, talk about, since you brought up elections, I realize it's not budget, but you're talking elections. Are we going to, or do you know, will we do a precinct-based election, or will we do vote centers in 2018?
we are planning on doing precincts. We don't really have the capability to do vote centers due to the cost of the poll books. We need a large portion of them, and I think the preference of the council, at least stated during the last election, was to go the precinct route, and I think we're pretty well equipped for it, and that's what this budget reflects.
Right. Good. Very good. Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the most part, the city council budget remains fairly flat from year to year. The biggest change we see is professional services, and that's the citizen survey expense. We see it rotates between $20,000 for 1 year for the data gathering and $5,000 for the following year for the data analysis. So it's always a rotating expense that we see, and that really is our biggest expense. The other we have is the travel and training. We've held that flat from this year. Although we have a budget, it doesn't mean we need to spend it. And then also a couple things to note are memberships and dues. Our South Dakota Municipal League is $65,000 to be members, and the National League of Cities is about $10,600. When comparing the city council budget in all three programs, you can see that the budget has remained very flat except for the expense of election. If we look from 2017 to 2018 and omit the election expense, we're only increasing our spending by $500.
All right. Anybody questioning the $500? No. Councilor Starr?
No, I
Anything
wasn't.
from you? Okay. Then I just have one question of clarification on Municipal League. Say it again, is it in the training line?
It is. It's in dues and memberships.
Okay.
And then we also have the annual conference that we go to and quarterly meetings that we attend as well.
Okay. Great. Well, no other questions? Anything else from you, Mr. Rixler? What's the next step in this process then?
Well, the next step will be the operations budget will be presented to the council on July 18th, and that will be the budget address, and then we'll move from there. Currently, I'm working on getting answers to questions regarding the capital budget, and I will be sending them out shortly. And if anybody has any, certainly please let me know, and we'll pass it along to everybody.
Great.
Can I, excuse me?
Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask what some of those questions might be, or you're not able to share that with us, and that'd be fine?
Well, some are like with highways and streets. One of the questions I have is I'd like to know when we see dollars decrease from a total capital project from one cycle to the next in a 5-year cycle, I'd like to know what projects have come off the docket that we've already completed that would allow for that drop in expense. You know, like Louise Avenue, that's a big one. You know, we have some things that we're getting completed and just want to identify those as well.
I thought you were talking about this budget, the city council budget. I'm sorry. I understand what
The
you're saying.
overall, to clarify,
You're talking
the overall
about the
city
operations
budget.
and CIP budget.
Yes, yes.
Got it.
Then to clarify as well, the questions that you are, many of the questions are just things that you're discovering on your own that you need clarified on behalf of the city council, but you're also asking questions that are coming from individual city council members to you. You know, Mr. Rixler, help me figure this out. Where is that? What happened to this? Why is that new? Those sorts of questions, are those the things that you're talking about?
Exactly, and then I channel those through the finance department, and they'll parse those out to the correct departments. And so we kind of keep it consolidated so we don't have several different answers flying around, and so everybody gets the same information.
Great, good. Because this is a piece of a much larger discussion for the city council, I'm not going to take public input at this meeting. It's just something that, this is informational as much as anything. Council can make all kinds of changes and whatever to it, but that $500 change is probably not a big deal. But anything else from you, Mr. Rixler?
No, thank you.
Thank you for making the presentations, and thank you to Kim and to Tom. Appreciate that. Open discussion for this group, for the fiscal committee. Anything for the good of the order?
Look forward to having people at the working sessions that we scheduled, Mr. Bixler has scheduled, and
Yes.
that should be very interesting this year.
You know, Mr. Bixler, would you come up again, please, and remind us and the citizens, what's the schedule for looking at that 2018 budget? We're just really kind of rolling into it now. And this becomes, I always say, when people ask me what city council like, I always say that July, August, and beginning of September are the busiest parts of our work life, right? So can you talk a little bit about when do we start with these next big meetings, and how does that roll out for us?
Correct. Okay, so in July 18th, we will have the operations budget presented, so we'll have both budgets presented to the council, and that will be at the budget address. And then shortly thereafter, we will have budget hearings where each of the departments will present their budgets to the council. And we usually wait for 2 of those budget hearings to take place before we have a budget working, a budget working session, because then we have more information available, and it just makes a more effective meeting. And so we'll probably have 1 working session for sure, and the other ones are potential if there's a need.
Great. It's an exciting time for government geeks throughout August and September, so good. Thank you very much. Anything else for open discussion? All right, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. We'll be back here as a full council at 7 o'clock. Thank you.